Well, welcome to the 700 Club. The top story, of course, is that Michael Flynn, the National Security Advisor of the President, is out. But the question is, who leaked? Who is it that is the holdover from the Obama administration that is trying to destroy President Trump and his aides? That's the story. And we're going to try to find out what it is that's going on and what the penalties for doing what they're doing are. Here's Wendy.
All of that is happening as President Trump is meeting with an extremely important American ally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Gary Lane has the story.
Michael Flynn's controversial communication with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. occurred before he and President Trump took office. The president reportedly knew about the phone conversation for nearly 3 weeks. Democrats are demanding an investigation, but Republicans suggest any investigation must also ask the question, what did President Obama know, and when did he know it? That's because FBI monitoring of Flynn's private communications required permission from someone, either the president at the time, Barack Obama, or a warrant issued by a federal judge. On Capitol Hill, frequent Trump critic Senator John McCain expressed concern.
Obviously, there's an administration that is in significant disarray as far as national security is concerned.
But the White House insists the only threat to the nation's security may be coming from leaks of sensitive or classified information. Flynn's resignation was not only a matter of the president's inability to trust the word of his national security advisor, but also his inability to trust the intelligence community. In the case of Flynn, the president wants to know who provided the information to the Washington Post. Was it an Obama holdover in the intelligence community, acting politically to damage the new president and his administration? Meanwhile, at the White House today, foreign security threats will top the agenda for both the United States and Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister meets with President Trump to discuss Iran, Syria, and the Palestinians. The meeting between longtime friends will be the first since Trump became president. For the past 8 years, relations with Israel have been turbulent at times, even though President Obama said Israel could trust him.
When the chips are down, I have Israel's back.
Despite Obama's words of support, Jonathan Schanzer of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies told CBN's John Jessup relations between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu were terrible.
They really didn't agree on much, if anything at all. The good news, though, despite all of that, was that the ties at kind of the grassroots level were still very strong. Congress still maintained a good relationship with the Israelis. The Pentagon had a good relationship with Israel.
Israel questioned Obama's support yet again after he refused to veto a United Nations resolution critical of Israeli settlements late last year. And before that, his nuclear deal with Iran.
It has been said, better no deal than a bad deal. Better no deal than a terrible deal.
Discussions about Iran and the nuclear deal are expected to dominate the Trump-Netanyahu meeting. They'll also discuss the war in Syria. Netanyahu appeared upbeat when he arrived in the U.S.
President Trump and I see eye to eye on the dangers emanating from the region, but also on the opportunities.
And they're unlikely to agree on every issue. President Trump recently told an Israeli newspaper that Israel's expansion of so-called settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank don't help the process with the Palestinians, and going forward is not a good thing for peace. But overall, the two leaders are expected to work well together. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, thanks, Gary. Well, back to the Flynn matter and the leaks that are taking place. You know, I asked our news team if they'd give me some information on this. How do you get rid of somebody if you find that there's somebody trying to destroy you? Well, look, it can take 170 days to fire a federal employee. And a boss can go through a 12-step process. And even then, an employee in appeal can take over 240 days. That's what the federal law says. The heavy bureaucracy and the federal civil service unions, it's so hard to fire them that government bosses often don't even try. But on the other hand, if it's proven that laws are broken, it could be different. Here's what the U.S. Code says about firing employees who give out classified information. Quote, whoever knowingly and willfully communicates or otherwise makes available to an unauthorized person or publishes any classified information obtained by the processes of communication intelligence from the communications of any foreign government shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. So the time has come to send the Justice Department and the FBI out finding who those leakers are and put them in jail. I think it's time that we stop worrying about what General Flynn knew or didn't know and who he talked to or didn't talk to. And the question is, somebody was tuning in on those telephone conversations, and that is a federal crime. But apparently there are only about 4 people who would know this. And it could have gone all the way up to President Obama to authorize it. That's the shocking part. Well, our CBN News political correspondent David Brody is with us now. And David, what is the speculation among the Republicans? Were the Obama holdovers behind this, and have they been identified?
There are a few sources telling me this morning, Pat, that indeed there are. There have been some Obama holdovers, as you've put it, that are responsible for some of this leaked information. When pressed for names, they're not going to necessarily go there, but there's speculation. Let's start with 3 names. Sally Yates, of course, the former acting attorney general, let go by President Trump because she wouldn't hold up that travel ban, or the so-called travel ban. So there's her. She obviously expressed some concerns about Michael Flynn and those conversations with Russia, and now she is out there potentially causing some of this. And then there's James Clapper, the former head of the DNI, who's no longer part of all of this that has been going on. And then there is John Brennan, the former CIA director. President Trump and John Brennan there's no love lost between those 2 folks. So those are 3 folks that a lot of folks are looking at. Now, I will say this, Pat. There is a White House component here. Look, there were a lot of folks inside this White House that did not like Mike Flynn and what he was doing, not just with Russia, but some of it, the way he was operating, the style and all of that. So one of my sources indeed saying that this is also coming from inside the White House, believe it or not. And so, look, the bottom line is there are a lot of loopholes still to be filled in here.
Are they sort of bent out of shape because Trump wants to reform the bureaucracy? I know Flynn said that he wanted to reform the intelligence agency.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and that's a big motivator of what's driving things here. Let me give you an example. I was just speaking with Newt Gingrich this morning on the phone. Actually, he texted me this information, which is very interesting. 99%, Pat, did you know that 99% of the actual contributions to a presidential campaign went to Hillary Clinton at the State Department? 99% of federal employees at the State Department, those contributions went to Hillary Clinton. 97% of the federal employees at the Justice Department, those contributions went to Hillary Clinton. Here's Newt Gingrich's larger point, that the left-wing ideologues, those are his words, as he calls them, have been filling up the State Department, the Justice Department for many, many years, especially at state. And so this is part of what is driving much of this discussion this morning on leaks.
Well, how are they going to get rid of them? I just read the incredible hurdles that somebody has to go through to fire these people. How can Trump get rid of them in a hurry? He's got to do it. He's got to clean house.
Well, it's extremely difficult. Obviously, Pat, as you know, politically, it's been a little bit harder to do at the federal bureaucracy level because, you know, sometimes there are, I don't know, maybe political witch hunts. And we've seen that a few times. And so there are some protections in place at the federal level for this. But there is also the bureaucratic level. And what Newt Gingrich was telling me this morning, that, you know, you've got a 2-pronged problem here. You've got the federal bureaucracy just because it's bureaucratic. And then you've got establishment folks, left and right, who do not want to give up power. And so what you do is you have more of that molasses of government that just makes it, as you said at the top of the show here, Pat, much, much harder to get rid of a federal employee. So there are a lot of problems. And then you throw in the fact that President Trump is trying to implement more of a conservative agenda. And that makes it even harder because of what I just said regarding the State Department and the Justice Department and some of the left-wing ideologues that are at those 2 institutions.
Well, David, thank you for your insights. I appreciate it. And, folks, again, the press is against him. So, you know, you read the Bible, and there was a point in there where God told Jeremiah, he said, tell them to take the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, and they didn't want to do it. And you read the Psalms, the 2nd Psalm, which says, you know, why do the nations rage and imagine a vain thing, and they revolt against the Lord and His anointed. I think somehow the Lord's plan is being put in place for America, and these people are not only revolting against Trump, they're revolting against what God's plan is for America. These other people have been trying to destroy America. These left-wingers and so-called progressives are trying to destroy the country that we love and take away the freedoms they love. They want collectivism, they want socialism, and what we're looking at is free markets and a freedom from this terrible overarching bureaucracy. And they want to fight as much as they can, but I think the good news is the Bible says, he that sits in the heavens will laugh them to scorn. And I think that Trump's got something on his side that is a lot more powerful than the media. Well, in other news, President Trump is taking more actions to finally get the economy moving again. Ephraim Graham has that.
Pat, the president has signed into law a measure to kill some federal rules under the Dodd-Frank financial law. The rules were aimed at energy and mining companies. The rules involve revealing information about payments to governments. But the Wall Street Journal reports the industry said it made it harder to compete against oil companies in other countries who didn't have to abide by such rules. The president said repealing the rules would be good for jobs and the industry.
We're bringing back jobs big league. We're bringing them back at the plant level. We're bringing them back at the mine level. The energy jobs are coming back, and it's you see what's going on with the stock market. They know that we know what we're doing, so it's going up at record clips.
Also on the economic front, another blow for Obamacare, as Humana has become the first major insurance company to drop out of the Obamacare exchanges for 2018. Pat?
Well, thank you very much. There's something else I read today I thought would be rather interesting. There's a study that went on, and engineers studied the infrastructure, especially the bridges that cross the various oceans, not the oceans, but the rivers and harbors of our nation. They found that 56,000 bridges have been classified as structurally deficient. Now, that's the latest from the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. Now, that's what they say. And they include some of the major bridges that you're familiar with, including the Memorial Bridge in Washington, D.C. So you'd be driving along happily, and the next thing you know, a section of that bridge could collapse, and cars begin to plunge off into space, and people get killed. This thing is very serious. Bridges can, fall back and forth and collapse into the water, and 56,000 of them are deficient. So you talk about an infrastructure program. We really are deficient in that. We need to do something about it. Well, there's something else in your personal life you ought to do something about, too. And Ephraim has that story.
Pat, heart disease could become extremely expensive in the next 2 decades. It could cost the U.S. $1 trillion per year by the year 2035. That is according to a new report from the American Heart Association. Among the reasons why, the increasing rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes, and the fact that the baby boom generation is getting older. Time to protect your heart. Pat?
Well, I protected mine up here. You want to feel like that? You feel it? That's my pacemaker.
Oh, yeah,
you
right
feel
there.
it? Yeah. It's a little metal thing. It's stuck in there. They opened it up, put it in.
Does it feel funny? It did at first, right?
Oh, they take the nodes and screw them into your heart. I mean, it's really 2 wires they screw into your heart, and that thing just pumps away. I'm just very happy.
The good news is you haven't had to get zapped lately.
No more zapping. The guy said, look, you're going to be zapped so often. I said, okay, let's do that. The only problem is if we have a thermonuclear explosion, it might kill me, but that's the, they talk about a zombie apocalypse. Well, if there's a solar flare, my heart might stop beating, but other than that, it's going real great. But, ladies and gentlemen, what's causing all this is ingesting high fructose corn syrup. And it's in everything. It's in cereal, and it's in baby food, and it's in all the soft drinks. And we are ingesting so much sugar. It is not fat. It is not being caused by fat. It is being caused by sugar, and ingestion of an enormous amount of sugar. And it's bringing on type 2 diabetes, and what that is causing, what they call inflammation. And so inside us are just like little furnaces, and the little furnaces are breaking down our bodies, especially our hearts. $1 trillion a year is going to cost this economy in a very short period of time unless we do something about it. We should ban a lot of that stuff, but I'm sure the libs wouldn't like that either. But the food companies ought to shape up, and we ought to, they ought to do something. But you got smoking, lots of smoking. You got all this sugar, high fructose corn syrup. It's deadly. And you don't ingest that stuff, Wendy. You're so healthy. Never.
Well, maybe sometimes.
You read the labels and you know all the answers.
I am a label reader.
I am too.
So eat the egg yolk and put down the white sugar.
Well, I had 2 boiled eggs for dinner last night. It was just delicious. Yum, yum.
Eggs are the perfect food,
Yeah,
aren't
perfect.
they?
Yeah, they're good for you.
Carry it with you. Love it.
All
right.